Joining us now, staff writer for The New Yorker, Lawrence Wright. He is the author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning book, The Looming Tower, Al-Qaeda and the Road to 9/11, considered by many to be the seminal work on the rise of Al-Qaeda. Lawrence, thank you for joining us for our coverage today. I first just want you to share your thoughts on 9/11, 22 years later.
Well, I have to say I mourn the America that we lost in that moment. There was a sense of safety and unity, civil comity in our country that we haven't regained since then. I also mourn the country we might have been. I don't know if you remember this feeling, but right after 9/11, there was a sense among so many people that we're going to have to stand for something now, that our generation had gotten off easy. You know, we didn't have wars, we didn't have depression, we didn't have plagues, history had given us a break, and suddenly history visited us and we were called up to do something. And many people did join the military services, intelligence services, but for the most part, that sense of purpose was lost, and we found ourselves bogged down in meaningless and expensive and terribly dangerous wars in countries we didn't understand. And, we could have been a different country. We were a different country before 9/11. We could have become a better country after 9/11, but we took a different road.
And talk about, if you could, threats to our homeland today. Obviously, you're right. There was a lot to take a stand for right after 9/11. But the threat has changed. It is transforming itself because of world events, but also, if I may very carefully say, events here at home.
Unfortunately, the threat of terrorism has moved from foreign actors to domestic ones, aping the actions of Al-Qaeda and other terrorist organizations. That's not to say that terrorism from foreign shores is gone. No, Al-Qaeda still exists and other entities. The Taliban is back in power, so there are still dangers abroad. But the greater dangers by far are domestic terrorists who have picked up on the idea of being highly empowered with modern weapons and explosives and military training in some cases. So once again, what we have to face is disunion inside our shores and not defending ourselves from foreign actors.
Lawrence, talk a little bit about the world that America left behind outside of America's shores after 9/11. You spent a lot of time when you were writing The Looming Tower, of course, following the roots of Al-Qaeda throughout the Middle East. But talk about a little bit about the impact that the American retaliation after 9/11 had on countries like Iraq, like Afghanistan.
Well, just to take Iraq as an example, we often hear about the number of fatalities being 500,000 people or something like that. And God knows the treasury that we spent on those two wars. I don't think we even understand. We haven't really factored in the cost to our society, both in terms of, our budget and so on, and also the moral cost that has been extracted by our adventures abroad. And has it improved situation? Well, I think, we put Al-Qaeda to sleep for a while, but, Al-Qaeda on 9/11 was about 300 or 400 guys. More recent estimates say 30 to 40,000 people in Al-Qaeda and its affiliates. Now the focus has moved to sub-Saharan Africa, but their goals haven't changed. And so that remains a problem. I think one of the big factors that people need to concentrate on is the number of displaced people in the world, the refugee populations. When we started talking about terrorism back in, 50 years ago, we were talking about Palestinians. And, the exodus in 1948 was about 750,000 Palestinians. And, out of that came the hijackings and so on. We're talking tens of millions of people all over the globe who are in refugee camps or squalid conditions in countries not their own. The danger of radicalization in organizations, in camps like that, is really formidable, and I am concerned about the future there.
Lawrence, as you just said, there was a moment of national unity after September 11th, 2001. Also, the globe rallied to our defense. If, God forbid, the United States were to be victim of another terror attack akin to what happened 22 years ago today, what would you think would happen now? Would we as a nation come together again as we did then? And obviously, because everything that's happened since then, including those wars in the Middle East and their aftershocks, do you think the world would rally to us in the same way?
Honestly, I don't. I think that the history since 9/11 has alienated much of the world from America. And, the sense was America stood for certain values that were universal. I don't think that much of the world feels that way any longer. America was not a colonialist power, and that was one of the reasons that many people in the Arab world were on our side, because we didn't have that history. I don't think people in that part of the world feel similarly. The world has become very polarized between different entities, and the United States has its allies, fortunately, but the goodwill that once existed towards America broadly around the world, I think, is largely dissipated.
Pulitzer Prize-winning author and the New Yorker's Lawrence Wright, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.